It's funny how your family can believe you're the biggest disappointment in the room, and then a man with a badge and a gun calls you ma'am and director. I stood there in my heels and tailored suit, staring at the man who once interrogated me at my lowest, now holding the door open for me with pride. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. You want to know how I went from being the failure of my family to leading one of the most secretive government operations in the country? Buckle up. Because it wasn't
You never
luck.
said it was
It
this
was grit,
big.
she
Silence.
said. I shrugged.
And
the one thing my
would it have
family never
mattered?
saw in me, vision
She looked
and
at me
name
then,
is Eva
really
Ramirez.
looked.
I'm 38 years
Yes.
old, and I was once the
I think it
cautionary
would have
tale
scared
in
us,
every family
honestly.
gathering. You know the
That
one.
surprised
Don't
me.
end up
I
like
didn't
Eva.
think our little
She
girl
can't hold
who
a job,
doodled.
can't pick a man,
Logos
can't
and
even figure
notebooks
out
would
what she
actually
wants from
go
life,
out
and turn
but
it
what
into
they
something
didn't know
this
was
real.
that I was
She
holding
said,
onto a dream too heavy
you
for
never
their
asked
small
us for anything.
imaginations.
And I was about
You
to carry
just
it
did
further
it.
than anyone ever expected.
I guess we didn't
the
know
turning
how to
point
react.
didn't come from a family reunion
She
or
sat
some
down
dramatic
across from
moment
me,
of redemption.
hands folded.
It came in a gray, windowless interview room with a man who would later salute me. But before that, the fall had to come first. After college, I didn't follow the traditional path like my siblings. My older brother became a doctor, my sister a lawyer. Meanwhile, I took a job as a security analyst for a defense contractor. The pay was average, the hours worse, and no one in the family had a clue what I actually
You never
did.
said it was
I
this
tried to
big,
explain
she
it
said.
once
I
at
shrugged.
Thanksgiving and got blank stares
Would it have
before my
mattered?
aunt cut in to ask if I
She
was
looked
still
at me
single.
then,
The
really
message was
looked.
clear. My work didn't
Yes.
matter if there was no ring and
I
no
think it
title.
would have
They
scared us,
understood. But what they
honestly.
couldn't grasp was that I That was slowly
surprised
being
me.
pulled
I
into
didn't
something
think our little
deeper,
girl who
something bigger
doodled.
than any of us imagined.
Logos and
3 years
notebooks
into
would actually
that
go
job,
out
I
and
was
turn it
flagged
into
for an
something this
internal
real,
audit.
she said.
Someone had accused me of
You never
unauthorized
asked us
access
for
to
anything.
classified documents.
You just
I was
did it.
escorted out in front of the whole
I guess we
department,
didn't know how to
stripped of my
react.
badge, and questioned
She
by
sat
federal
down across
agents.
from me,
My
hands
mother cried
folded.
over the phone. My father told me maybe it was time to come home and rethink everything. My brother said, it's okay, not everyone's cut out for high-level work. But deep down, I knew I hadn't done anything wrong, at least not in the way they assumed. I was digging, yes, but not for personal gain. I was following patterns no one else had the stomach to explore. And I wasn't wrong. The audit
You
cleared
never
me,
said it was
but the
this
attention
big,
I
she
attracted
said. I
didn't go
shrugged.
unnoticed. One of
Would
the
it have
agents
mattered?
in that room,
She looked
man
at me
named
then,
Reese
really
Tanner,
looked.
asked me afterward, what
Yes.
exactly were you looking for?
I think
I
it would
told
have
him I
scared
had
us,
flagged
honestly.
discrepancies in overseas
That
data
surprised
transfers,
me. I didn't think our little girl who
communications,
doodled.
and personnel movement.
Logos
Things
and
no one had
notebooks
linked
would actually
together.
go out
He
and turn it into
just
something
nodded
this real,
and said,
she said.
that's above your pay grade.
You never
3
asked
weeks
us for
later,
anything.
I got a call from a restricted
You
number.
just did it.
They offered me a provisional
guess we
position
didn't know
in a
how to
classified
react.
division. No
She
title,
sat down
no
across from me,
explanation,
hands
just a
folded.
location and a date. I accepted. What did I have to lose? The next 3 years of my life disappeared into a file no one could read. I was trained, tested, and buried in intelligence work so far off the radar, even I sometimes forgot who I was. My job was to predict threats before they happened, not based on hunches, but on the little things others missed.
You
Flight
never
changes,
said it was this big,
wire
she said.
transfers,
I shrugged.
unusual visa renewals.
Would it have mattered?
I had a knack for pattern
She looked at me
recognition
then,
that no one
really
in my family
looked.
ever appreciated,
Yes.
but in that room, it became a
I
weapon
think it
and
would have
IT
scared
was during
us,
that time
honestly.
I understood just how valuable a mind
surprised me.
like I didn't
Mine
think
could
our little
be,
girl
but I
who
also
doodled.
knew
it came at a cost. I was
Logos and
completely cut off
notebooks
from my
would
family
actually
during
go
those
out and
years.
turn it into
Not
something this
because
real,
I didn't
she
love
said.
them, but because I couldn't
You
share
never
a single
asked us
thing
for
about my
anything.
life. All they saw
You
was that
just
I
did it.
disappeared. The rumors
guess we
started.
didn't know how to
She's
react.
unemployed. She's
She
depressed.
sat down across
She's
from me,
probably
hands
working
folded.
retail and embarrassed to say it. At Christmas, I sat alone in a hotel room with a fake smile and a burner phone, but every sacrifice was building something no one saw coming, least of all me. In my 7th year, everything changed. Our team uncovered chatter about a planned cyber attack targeting the financial systems of 2 major U.S. cities. Not just banks, infrastructure,
You never said it was
utilities,
this big,
transport.
she said. I shrugged.
It would have paralyzed entire
Would it have mattered?
populations. And it was
She
all
looked
hidden
at
in
me
what
then,
looked like
really
dating app
looked.
metadata. I was the one who caught
Yes.
it. I saw the link.
I think it
I
would have
connected
scared
the
us,
dots, and then I
honestly.
was asked to lead the
That
response.
surprised
The
me.
operation
I
was
didn't
a
think
success,
our little girl
but
who
it wasn't
doodled.
public. The attack
Logos
was
and
never
notebooks
would
reported.
actually go out
The
and turn it
agencies
into
involved
something this
stayed
real,
silent,
she said.
The
The country moved on,
You
never
never
knowing
asked
we
us
just
for
stopped
anything.
something catastrophic.
You
I
just
didn't
did
get a
it.
medal. No
I guess
newspaper
we didn't know
headline,
how to react.
but I got something better.
She
a
sat down
permanent
across from
promotion,
me,
director
hands
of
folded.
digital threat assessment. It sounded fictional. And to my family, it might as well have been. That brings me to the moment everything came full circle. We were called in to assess a breach at a federal agency. I walked in with my team, heels clicking against the marble floor, and there, standing at the door, was Agent Reese Tanner. The same man who once interrogated me when I was accused of misconduct.
You never
His
said
eyes
it was
flicked
this
to my
big,
badge.
she said.
His
I shrugged.
stance straightened. And
Would it
then,
have mattered?
with full sincerity, he
She
said,
looked at me then,
Director,
really
I
looked.
served under you. It's
Yes.
an honor. My heart pounded.
I think it would have
not
scared
from
us,
pride,
honestly.
But from the flood of everything it took
That
to get there.
surprised me.
Asterisk
I
that
didn't
night,
think our
I
little
drove
girl
to my
who
parents'
doodled.
house. I hadn't
Logos
seen them
and
in over a
notebooks
year.
would actually
My
go
father
out and
answered
turn
the
it into
door,
something this
shocked.
real, she
My
said.
mother pulled me into a hug
You
like
never
she thought
asked
I'd
us for
vanished.
anything.
They asked where I'd
You
been.
just did
I
it.
told them I worked in digital
I guess we
security
didn't know how to
under
react.
federal contract. That
She
I was
sat
helping
down
keep the
across from
country
me,
safe.
hands
My
folded.
brother scoffed. So, IT support? My sister sipped her wine. You should think about going back to school. Get a real degree. I almost laughed, almost. But then I took a deep breath and pulled out the commendation letter signed by the Deputy Secretary of Homeland Security. Their faces dropped. I didn't show it to impress them. I showed it to free myself, to remind
You never
myself
said it
that
was
their
this
opinions
big,
had
she
stopped
said. I
mattering
shrugged.
years ago. My mother
Would it have
blinked back
mattered?
tears. My
She
father
looked
sat
at me
down
then,
slowly.
really looked.
My sister asked if it was
Yes.
real, but the best part?
I think it
I
would have
didn't need
scared
their
us,
validation
honestly.
anymore. I stayed for dinner.
That
but I left
surprised me.
before
I
dessert.
didn't think our little
not out
girl
of spite,
who doodled.
but because I had somewhere.
Logos and
more
notebooks
important
would
to be.
actually go
My
out
team
and
was
turn it into
assembling that
something
night
this
to
real,
debrief
she
a new
said.
cyber threat. And while
You
they
never
spent
asked
years
us for
trying to
anything.
define me, I had already
You just
redefined
did it.
myself. I drove off
I
with
guess
the
we
window
didn't
down,
know how to
wind in
react.
my hair, and a quiet
She sat
certainty
down
in my
across
chest.
from me,
They said
hands
I failed,
folded.
and that's exactly what made me unstoppable that night. After leaving my parents' house, I sat parked outside a quiet cafe with nothing but my phone and the soft hum of passing cars. I stared at my reflection in the screen. Not the woman they thought they knew, not the floundering daughter, not the single sister, but the director. And yet, a strange ache bubbled up in my chest, because for all the pride I had earned,
You never said
something
it was this
still
big,
missing.
she
IT
said.
wasn't
I
just
shrugged.
about the job. It
Would
was
it have
about being
mattered?
understood, not as
She
someone
looked at me then,
extraordinary, but
really
simply as
looked.
someone valid.
Yes.
Someone who didn't need to wear a title
think
to
it would have
matter.
scared us,
I scrolled through
honestly.
old photos on my
That surprised
phone,
me.
family
I didn't
barbecues,
think our little girl who
graduations,
doodled.
the birthdays I missed
Logos
while
and
working in
notebooks
undisclosed
would actually
locations.
go out and turn it
I
into
wondered,
something this
could I
real,
ever be
she
both?
said.
Could I be the Eva
You
who
never
stopped a
asked us
cyber
for
war,
anything.
and the Eva who brought the potato
You just
salad to
did
her
it.
nephew's birthday?
I guess
a month
we didn't
later,
know how to
I was
react.
invited to speak at a cybersecurity
She sat down
summit
across
in
from
DFC.
me, hands
It was
folded.
a rare public appearance. Most of us behind the curtain preferred the shadows. But the threat landscape had changed. We needed the next generation, especially women, to know we existed. That they could be more than just good with computers. I stood backstage, watching the room fill with students, CEOs, agents, and analysts. And for the first time, I felt nervous. Not because of who they were,
You
but
never
because
said
my
it was
story
this
was
big,
about to
she
become
said.
real.
I shrugged.
Out loud. For the
Would it
first
have
time,
mattered?
my name is Eva Ramirez.
She looked at
I
me
began.
then, really
and for
looked.
most of my life, I was
Yes.
told I was wasting my
I think it would have
potential.
scared us,
that I was the
honestly.
underachiever. The
That
afterthought.
surprised me,
But
I
here's
didn't
the
think our
truth.
little girl
I was
who
just in
doodled.
training. And the
Logos and
battlefield I
notebooks
chose
would
didn't
actually
look like the
go
one
out
my
and
family
turn it into
understood.
something this
There
real,
was a
she
pause in the
said.
crowd, then a
You
stillness
never
I
asked
had
us
grown
for
to
anything.
appreciate. I had them,
You
and
just
this
did
time,
it.
they wanted to listen.
I guess we didn't know how to react.
Event, a young woman approached.
She sat down
me.
across from me,
She looked
hands
about 20,
folded.
holding a notepad and trembling a little. Ms. Ramirez, she said, how did you know you were meant for more? That you weren't just making it up? I smiled gently. I remembered that feeling, the doubt, the imposter syndrome. The nights crying on apartment floors wondering if this weird sense of mission was just delusion. You don't always. No, I told her. You just keep showing up until your
You
work
never said
speaks
it was
for you.
this big,
She
she
nodded,
said. I
but I saw
shrugged.
the tears forming.
Would it
I
have
handed her
mattered?
my contact card,
She
not
looked
the
at me
official
then,
one,
really
but the
looked.
personal one. Reach out when
Yes.
you're ready. That
I think it
interaction
would have
stayed
scared
with me
us,
for days.
honestly.
I started thinking
That
about how many
surprised me.
girls
I
out there
didn't
were
think
like
our little
me,
girl who
buried
doodled.
under expectations.
Logos
Called
and notebooks
difficult,
would actually
dismissed
go
as
out
lost
and turn it
causes.
into something
I
this real,
decided to
she
launch a
said.
side initiative within
You
my
never
agency,
asked us for
a shadow
anything.
mentoring network for young
You
women in
just
tech
did it.
and intelligence.
I guess we
Discreet,
didn't know how to react.
protected, quietly powerful.
She sat down across
It was
from
called
me,
Project
hands
Echo,
folded.
because every voice, no matter how small, deserved to be heard until it echoed in the right places. By the end of that year, something unexpected happened. My mother sent me a letter, not a text, not an email, a handwritten letter. Inside was a photo of me at age 12, sitting at the dining table surrounded by computer parts and wires. I didn't understand it then, she wrote. But I see it now.
You never said
you
it
were
was this
never
big,
failing.
she said.
You
I
were building
shrugged.
something the rest of us
Would it
couldn't
have
see.
mattered?
I sat in my office
She looked
reading
at me
that letter
then,
over
really
and
looked.
over. Tears I didn't know I had
Yes.
left finally fell.
I think it would have
Sometimes
scared
the
us,
recognition
honestly.
doesn't come when you want it.
That
But when
surprised
it does,
me. I
it's
didn't
like
think our
air
little girl
after
who
drowning.
doodled.
And my relationship with
Logos
my family
and
didn't
notebooks
magically
would actually
fix
go
itself
out
overnight.
and turn it into
My
something
brother
this real,
still teased
she
me like
said.
I was 16.
You never
my
asked
sister
us
still
for
thought she
anything.
was the star. But
You
something
just did
subtle
it.
shifted. They
I
asked
guess we
questions.
didn't know how to react.
They listened longer.
She
they
sat
stopped
down
joking
across
about
from
me,
me, hands
finally
folded.
settling down, and started asking if I had time to visit. The truth is, I forgave them. Not because they deserved it, but because I no longer needed them to define me, and that is freedom. Now, nearly 15 years into my work, I've mentored over 60 women, led 14 high-level operations, and briefed 3 administrations. I've lost sleep, friends, and relationships.
You
I've
never
missed
said it was
birthdays,
this big,
funerals,
she said.
and
I
even my
shrugged.
own surprise party once.
Would it have mattered?
But I've also stopped a nuclear
She looked
trade,
at me then,
shut down a
really
child
looked.
exploitation ring buried in a
Yes.
gaming app, and rewritten
I think it
national
would have
threat
scared us,
protocols,
honestly.
and I'd do it all again, because there's a kind of peace that comes from knowing you chose your path. Even when no one clapped
Logos
at the
and
start,
notebooks
if I
would
could
actually
speak to the
go
girl
out
I
and
once
turn it
was,
into something
the
that's
one
real,
sitting in that
she said.
security analyst cubicle,
You never
doubting
asked
her
us for
worth while her
anything.
family joked behind her back.
You just
I'd
did
say
it.
this, keep going. I guess
Keep
we
reading
didn't know how to
between
react.
the lines.
She
Keep
sat
seeing
down
what
across
others
from
miss.
me,
Hands
they won't
folded.
get it now. But one day a man with a badge will salute you. And in that moment, you'll realize that your journey was never about proving them wrong. It was about becoming the kind of leader who never needed their permission to begin. I didn't know it at the time, but that summit marked the beginning of a new chapter, not in my career, but in my sense of identity. For so long, I thought I had to become someone else
You never
to be
said it
taken
was this
seriously.
big, she said.
Someone
I shrugged.
colder, sharper,
Would it have
unreachable. But the truth,
She looked at me
my
then,
strength
really
came from
looked.
the very things they said were
Yes.
weaknesses. My empathy.
I think it
my
would have
doubt,
scared us,
my instinct
honestly.
to feel before I
That
reacted.
surprised me.
Those
I
weren't
didn't think our little
liabilities.
girl who
They were my
doodled.
edge. I started seeing my
Logos
life
and
in dual
notebooks
timelines.
would actually go
there
out
was the
and turn it into
classified,
something this
high-stakes
real,
world
she
where
said.
decisions made in seconds
You never
affected
asked
nations.
us for anything.
And then there was the quiet,
You
personal
just did
world
it.
where I tried to rebuild
I
what I'd
guess we
lost.
didn't know how to
I
react.
began reaching out more. She
Sunday
sat down
phone
across
calls,
from me,
birthday
hands folded.
cards.
Even a group chat with my siblings, which mostly devolved into memes and arguments about who mom loved more. Small things, but they mattered, because for the first time, I wasn't just surviving both worlds. I was living in them. Then came the invitation that felt like the final loop closing, a high school reunion. 15 years. I almost deleted the email. What did I have to prove to the people who once called
You
me
never
weird,
said it was this
intense,
big,
and
she said.
too
I
serious?
shrugged.
But then I
Would it
thought,
have mattered?
maybe it wasn't about them.
She
Maybe
looked
it was
at me
about
then,
walking into
really
a room with
looked.
my head high. Not because I
Yes.
changed for them, but
I think
because
it
I'd
would have
finally
scared us,
accepted all of
honestly.
me. I wore a navy dress,
That surprised
subtle
me.
heels,
I didn't
and a
think our
badge
little
I'd clipped
girl who
discreetly
doodled.
to my coat. The gym
Logos
hadn't
and
changed
notebooks
much.
would
Same
actually go
banners
out and
same
turn it
disco
into
ball
something
hanging
real,
from a
she
chain
said.
that looked one breath away.
You never
from
asked us for
snapping.
anything.
A few people recognized
You
me.
just did it.
Some whispered.
I
Others
guess we
stared.
didn't know
Then
how to
someone walked
react.
up, a former classmate.
She sat down
Tanya,
across from me,
cheerleader,
hands folded.
yearbook editor. Back then, we had nothing in common. She smiled wide. Eva? Oh my God. I heard what you do now. Everyone's saying you work for the government? I just smiled back. Let's just say, I help keep systems from falling apart. The rest of the night, I danced between conversations and polite laughter, but there was a new ease to it all. I wasn't trying
never
to fit
said
in.
it was this
I
big,
wasn't
she
shrinking.
said. I shrugged.
Myself. I wasn't
Would it have
translating my
mattered?
life into something others
She looked
could
at me
digest.
then,
For
really
once,
looked.
I let the mystery be mine.
Yes.
And it felt like power.
I think
The
it would have
quiet
scared
kind,
us,
the kind that
honestly.
doesn't need to shout. Later
That
that night,
surprised me.
I got a
I
text
didn't
from
think
my
our little
mother.
girl who
Just
doodled.
4 words. I'm proud
Logos
of you.
and
No
notebooks would
backhanded
actually go out
suggestions.
and turn it into
no
something this real,
comparisons.
she said.
No awkward pauses.
You never asked
just
us for
that
anything.
I stared at the screen for a
just
long
did it.
time, smiling.
I guess
before
we didn't
typing
know how
back.
to react.
Thank you, Mom.
She
I'm
sat
proud of
down
me
across
too,
from me,
because
hands folded.
after everything, I finally was. Now, every morning I walk into my office beneath 5 layers of security and biometric scans. I take a breath and remember the journey. The girl who was laughed at, the woman who was doubted, the daughter who was pitted. All of her, every broken version, walked so I could stand where I do. And when new hires ask me, how do you stay grounded? I tell them the truth.
You never
I
said it was this
underestimated
big, she said.
for so
I shrugged.
long. I learned to build
Would
my
it have
own
mattered?
foundation. Recently,
She looked
a
at me
colleague
then,
I deeply
really
respect
looked.
pulled me aside after a
Yes.
major operation.
I
We
think it
just
would have
foiled
scared
a
us,
deepfake threat
honestly.
campaign that could have
That
destabilized
surprised
election
me.
confidence.
I didn't think our little
it was
girl who
complex,
doodled.
delicate, and required
Logos and
emotional
notebooks would
intelligence.
actually
Most
go out
analysts
and turn it
didn't
into
have thought
something
he
this
looked me in
real,
the
she
eye
said.
and said, no one else
You
would
never
have caught
asked
it.
us for
Eva,
anything.
You don't lead like a soldier.
just did
You
it.
lead like a strategist
I guess
who
we
never
didn't know how to
forgot.
react.
She was human. And
She
that,
sat down
more
across
than any
from me,
title,
hands
is what I
folded.
hold closest to any woman reading this, wondering if she's lost in a storm of failure and doubt. Hear me clearly. You are not too emotional. You are not too soft. You are not too complicated or too invisible. You are a system the world hasn't learned how to read yet, but that doesn't make you wrong. It makes you rare. So yes, they once said I failed. They said I was too quiet, too odd, too
You
unsure.
never said it was
but
this
what
big,
they missed
she
was that
said.
I was
I shrugged.
watching, learning,
Would it have
becoming,
mattered?
and one day, when a
She
federal
looked at me
agent
then,
with stripes
really
on his
looked.
shoulder stood before me and
Yes.
said, Director,
I
I
think it
served
would
under
have
you.
scared us,
Every
honestly.
insult they ever hurled at
That
me became
surprised me.
irrelevant.
I didn't
because
think our
failure
little
didn't
girl who
define me.
doodled.
IT trained me. Now I
Logos
wake up
and
every morning
notebooks
and
would
serve a
actually
country
go
that
out
may
and
never
turn it
know my
into
name.
something this real,
And I'm
she
okay
said.
with that. Because
You
I
never
know who I
asked us
am,
for
not just
anything.
behind the desk,
just
but
did
in
it.
my bones, and no
I
one,
guess we
not
didn't know
even
how to
family,
react.
can take that away from me.
She sat